Thank you for staying with us on Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris, with me Sharaad, Kuttan, and joining us on the show, Ibrahim Sani from Notepad with Ibrahim Sani. Now we're taking a look at the global economy because in 2019 we saw 5 big economies at the risk of recession, and wouldn't have taken much to push them over the edge. We saw Germany, Britain, Italy, Brazil and Mexico each ranking among the world's top 20 economies having faced with the risk of recession, the big R. Now, Ibrahim, I want to ask you, I mean, looking at this year, you've been focused on the economy and the business world in your reporting. How big do you think the risk of a slowdown is for this year? How worried should we be?
We should be very worried because economically speaking, we're not doing too well in terms of trying to make our pocket bigger or deeper in terms of getting more money inside it. 2 big subsidies that are going to be talked about for this year is BSH, Bantuan Sara Hidup, and the removal of petrol subsidies. We have to continue paying RON 95. I don't know, you don't drive, Sharaad, but for the rest of Malaysians who do.
A very small carbon footprint.
So that's going to slowly eat up on our wallet. That's one. Number 2, Bantuan Sara Hidup hits the B40 or helps the B40 the most. So the M40 group again is going to be hit hard. We have various kind of taxations that are going to be impacting M40,
right.
Including that of the 6% digital tax, including that of problematics of removal of many other subsidies surrounding the services and goods that we use, and all this because we removed the GST because government doesn't have money.
Right. I mean, I think the political dimension to this is twofold, right? I mean, one hand, you want a fiscal discipline. You want governments to do the budgeting correct, don't overspend, so on and so forth, right? But they should spend. That's not a problem. Or even get into debt. But the issue on the other side is you want to stabilize society. You know that economic pressures on people lead to instability. So
Sure.
the government has to do 2 things. It's got to spend, but it has to spend in a judicious way. It has to be targeted.
Yes.
Something that's not often happened. We've had this blunderbuster, helicopter money when maybe it could be much more targeted. The question is, moving forward, does the government have the right balance?
No, they don't have the right balance.
Well,
think about it as the allowance, right? The medical critical allowance for medical practitioners. You know, the cabinet agreed. There's a lot of people, a lot of ministers were in the same meeting that agreed that there will be removal of critical allowance for medical workers back in June or July. I don't remember the exact date. Now, some of the ministers, including Syed Saddiq, says, oh, we wouldn't remove that critical allowance. This is symptomatic of this government.
Well, I think I have to come back to Sharaad's point. I think you used the correct word to kind of hit the nail on the head. It's targeted, right? Social protection targeting. And whether the government is helping the right people, whether society is helping the right people, the people who actually need it. So yes, we focus on the B40, but that is quite the spread that the government needs to help. What perhaps needs to happen is look at the depth that's being helped, whether social protection is being targeted to the people who need it the most.
Do you agree that the government is helping the M40 group a lot?
I think that's one conversation that you need to have. But just coming back to the critical allowance instance, I think, again, moving forward, we've talked about this over and over again in our shows, which is communications, right? So you cabinet makes a decision. Do they then think, oh, what is the possibility of pushback on this particular initiative? And so let's preempt that by actually doing all the necessary communications to kind of ameliorate or mitigate whatever pushback there is. What happens instead is decisions are made, it comes out, there's the pushback, and then some ministers decide to grandstand on that and show themselves to be heroes, blah, 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 and things that change not on the basis of evidence, not because of the superior argument, but basically on public sentiment.
Right,
now
which is a dangerous thing.
Right, now channeled through a politician. So this government's communication strategy, I don't know. We've talked about it endlessly over 2019. That's what it is. Let's hope 2020 is a better year for Pakatan in terms of communication.
Do you think anyone is listening to the fact that there have been multiple calls for better communication, perhaps a dedicated spokesperson, better communication strategy, outwardly and also behind the scenes? Is anyone listening?
No. This is the best part, right? It's at their own peril, not our disadvantage. Sure. It's at their own peril. It's for their own good that they get a single line of communication out preempting the market, many other stuff that we speak about.
Well, I think actually we are going to be impacted if they fail. One, because at this point in time, the government of the Pakatan Harapan government carries the hopes of reform. Now, who's waiting in the wings to take up state power at the federal level, if not UMNO and PAS to the Manfaat Nasional? And what do they stand for in economic terms? What do they stand for in terms of innovations with regard to the economy? People have, strangely enough, a nostalgia about the Barisan Nasional Days.
The cash handouts were
yes,
subsidies.
but nostalgia is about a distorted view of the past. And I think that's what's happening with our general public.
You know, you also use the word reform, Sharaad, which brings in this conversation that we need to have, right? Emma Research talked about the economy perut, right? So everything that hits our wallet and hits our stomachs, it becomes the focus of the day. And what happens is when we're so focused on trying to get meals on the table, trying to put our kids in school, we then forget about the issue of the wider reform. And that becomes background noise that we don't really focus on, but imperative to the future of the country, imperative in strengthening our fragile democracy.
But
How do we balance that, right?
It works hand in hand. It's a circle. You want reform, you need to, make sure people have food in their bellies in order for you to have the reform.
First, before we focus on reform?
I don't think it's one or the other that comes first. It's a yin-yang conversation. You have to do both together and in tandem. This is the problem that the Pakistan government has.
Okay, let's put aside government for a while. The private sector has been over many decades really leading the charge when it comes to the economy, right?
Rightfully so.
The SMEs are the backbone of this economy. Entrepreneurship is really strong. GLCs and the state, let's put that aside. Are we looking at a vibrant private sector that actually is going to keep the country going despite what is not done or what is done by government?
Yes, the ability for us to start a business in Malaysia is the easiest in the world. Imagine if I want to sell goreng pisang, I can do it right now in front of Maybank. Right now,
I would
can
buy
do
that,
it.
yeah.
Right? I can't do
goreng
that.
pisang.
I can't do that in Singapore. I can't do that in Jakarta not because of the inability for me to do so, but because of security level.
Multiple issues.
Yeah, but
easy to do
Indonesia is a $1 trillion economy. People are going gaga over Indonesia.
Yeah.
Vietnam
right?
has better educational scores, which also means that better educated workforce than Malaysia does at this point in time. We are the laggards. I mean, we're the hope, and now it seems that we've lost our mojo. Have we lost our mojo?
Yes, we have lost our mojo. The question is, why did we lose our mojo? I think it's because the government is not being helpful towards the SMEs. 90% of Malaysian employers, or 95%, some estimates go up as high as that, are SMEs. These are employers, I mean, GLCs, you speak of Petronas, all these PNB guys like, Maybank, Khazanah, EPF, all these guys, they employ about 5 to 10% of the Malaysian workers. 90% of Malaysian employers are SMEs. What has the government done to help this particular group? Putting 30 ringgit in digital wallet and all that doesn't help the SMEs. We need to do more for the SMEs.
Flying cars.
Okay, we're going to come back and continue this conversation with a focus on the environment after this on Consider This. Stay tuned.